I always joke about how I'm a builder, but I'm not actually on the tools that much. And you're probably wondering, what do I actually do? I thought that we could use this time over lockdown to talk about the process here at J&K. If you're really new to building, this will give you a bit of an overview of the process and some of the information we're going to need to work together to go from your idea to finished home. Part 1, the outside of the building. One of the very first things you do when we talk about building your home is we create what's called a specification document. You can download this from our website if you want. So we can take care of the planning process for you. That means taking it from concepts through to building consent, or you can also come to us with your consent already in place. Where possible, we would like to look at the consent documents first and make sure that what the designer is designing aligns with how we like to build. So all our builds come with insurance. We've got 3 key policies in place. We've got public liability and statutory liability, and we provide a deposit protection, progress payment protection, and a 10-year structural warranty. And we have contract works for every build, and that's important. Your bank will ask for that. So we sort that out and we'll give you a certificate. Yeah. Sheesh. Just a second. I'm back, guys. So usually we'll excavate the surface. What we need to do is take away 100 mils of topsoil at a bare minimum, sometimes more depending on the engineer's report, and we'll replace that with compacted base course. This gives us a nice clean flat surface to work off. 100 mils is the minimum amount we have to do in the building code. It's important to note that your site may have different requirements depending on what the engineer has picked up. We also start with the assumption that we're building on good ground. 50% of our jobs don't have good ground, and we'll resolve that with drilled piles, driven piles, or just excavating out more and doing a deeper layer of base course. So at the planning stage, we will get the engineer to do a pentrometer test, and they will confirm exactly where good ground is, and we can work with you to come up with the best solution. Once we've got this site prepped and cut, we're ready to start building, and we'll do a concrete foundation. The majority of the time we will build what's called a riprap slab. If this is the earth, the slab floats on top of the prepared ground. We've also, in some examples, will do a traditional 3604 foundation where we do a footing into the ground. A miniature example of this is the garage slab at Waifatu. So we've got your foundations down. This is always an awesome milestone on site. You know the saying, the wise man built his house on the rock. Your house is no different. We want it to be on a solid foundation. On this job here, to achieve that solid foundation, right where I'm standing now, we had to drill down 2 meters and fill it with concrete. And we've had to do that in 27 other spots on the site. But that means that we know that this foundation will stand the test of time and is strong enough to build a house on top of it. We will use timber frames to start creating the skeleton of your build. These are pre-made in a factory and brought to site. In general, we use 90 by 45 H1 timber. That's commonly known as 4x2. We can upgrade that to 6x2 to give you a bigger stud, but I've only ever done this on one build, and in general there's other more cost-effective ways to bump up the insulation values. That would be more important in a place like Queenstown, less important in a place like Wellington. Where the roof starts and the walls end is the top of your stud. That determines how high the ceilings inside are going to be. In general, we start with a 2-4 stud. 80% of houses do that. On the section nobody wanted, I did a 2-5-5 stud. It gave me just that little bit of extra height inside, and that's something that you could consider if you're on a tight site but you're still wanting to create an illusion of space. So the other 2 common sizes that we build in for some clients is a 2-5-5 stud or a 2.7 stud. Once the frames are in place, there's a lot of finishing off work. We have to do nail plates on all of the joints up the top. If we're not using a rigid air barrier, we'll have to do stud straps, and then all of the frames will have hardware to bolt down into the concrete. This wall behind me is a firewall, so that has some extra hardware on it as well. So we'll start the roof framing out of timber trusses. These are pre-made in a factory and brought to site. There's some options that we can do here like attic storage, or we can also do a cathedral So that's how you create a pitch ceiling on the inside. We then will line your roof with corrugated iron as a starting point. We can also use some other profiles like MC700 to create more of a rib or troughed look. You can choose from the color steel range. We'll then put on what's called a fascia. If this is the roof, there's a piece of timber right on the edge there. In general, we like to do this out of timber. Just one more thing that the builder can do on site. We can also opt for a metal fascia. We use Capital Continuous for that. We'll then do a soffit, or Kiwis get hassled that it sounds like saw feet. When you look up at the roof, it's the white boards coming down that kind of come out from the house, often called eaves. Not only do they provide protection and cover for your house, pushing the water out past the edge of the line of the house, depending on the style of your house, they will create a look. Spouting downpipes, basically all that water that your roof catches, we need to send away from your house. So it'll run down the roof, it'll hit the spouting, go along the spouting and into the downpipe. Those two things are in general color steel. Most of our clients choose a color of spouting to match the roof, and then the downpipes are similar. We can do PVC downpipes, and if you've got a water tank on site that needs to be fed from the roof, it will have to be PVC anyway. You'll need to choose with us a color for the roof, the fascia, the soffit, and the spouting and downpipes. Often the soffit is just white. The rest of those three normally match, or at least work together.
Basically, we just had a look at the color schemes that we like and the contrast of different materials, and from there kind of thought about what we would want.
Lots of drive-bys, hanging out the window, taking snaps of people's houses.
Yeah, and I think one of the first things we picked was the roof color. We went and saw houses in a new subdivision with different colored roofs that we thought we might like.
Right, so we've got a roof on your house, we've got timber frames up, now it's time to start putting the cladding on the walls. The neighbor just started mowing his lawn. Cladding is another word for weatherboard, or like, look at it like the outer skin of your house. The thing that's going to protect everything else from the elements, from the wind, the rain, the sun. So before we put the cladding on the walls, we'll put on what's called an underlay. Now in the majority of our builds we use a wrap, a product like Thermocraft Watergate Plus or similar. We can also upgrade to an air barrier such as Home Rab. RAB stands for Rigid Air Barrier, and that basically is just another layer of protection. There's not a right or a wrong, again, it's your individual scenario. Even things like how windy is it where you are would have an effect on what you decide to do. Some of the common claddings we use is James Hardie linear weatherboard, James Hardie linear oblique, brick, although brick would be very minimal, probably like 1 in 15 builds is brick. We also like to include a portion of timber weatherboard. Right now I'm kind of leaning to two products. We use cedar from a company called Hermpack, or we use a pine-based weatherboard from a company down south called Health-Based Building. In general, most people will pick two claddings for their house. If you've got one cladding like weatherboard the whole way around, you might have two tones of color. But it's nice to add in that second cladding and kind of create some different textures. We've got the roof on, we've got the walls on. Now we need the last piece of the puzzle on the outside is the windows. All of our jobs use double glazed aluminium windows from Westview Aluminium in Upper Hutt. Some common upgrades here include a thermal break, low Emax, tints, pet doors, keyless entry. You can customize the handles, and so you'll also choose your color of your windows. Outside you've got three main things. You've got your roof color, your weatherboard color, and your window color. Then we pick a front door. Often people will use their front door to add another element. We base it on an Axis 00 residential suite. You can pick from some styles and some colors, and there's different handles. You can play around. There's a front door builder on this website here. Garage door. If you're going to have a garage, you most likely want a door on it. We use sectional color steel doors from Dominator. They all come with a motor. You can hook it up to your home Wi-Fi and operate it from there. And finally, as well as all of that, we'll provide connection to your mains. That means power main, water main, sewer main, stormwater main, and gas main. And if you don't have a gas main, you can also liaise with your power company to get gas bottles. We base it on all of those connections being available at the edge of the property. The last thing is you're most likely going to be wanting to have a very fast internet connection to watch all of my videos. We'll run a duct from the house to the broadband at the road, and then your provider such as 2 Degrees or Spark will arrange for Chorus to connect the house to the grid. In the base contract we include a concrete allowance to pour you a driveway and a patio if that's what you require. From there we can talk about some optional upgrades such as topsoil, lawn seed, gardens, fences, decks. We also can work with a landscape designer to come up with a planting plan. You want to put as much effort into the landscaping as you have the house, and so I would strongly recommend you get a planting plan for your house. That pretty much covers the specifications of the outside. Let's move inside.